Because if Candace would say, well, how do we know that this is the actual letter? It was put out by the New York Post, the shill for Israel. Then you would have to know the contents of the letter, all 7 pages, read it, and recognize that repeatedly Charlie refers to his team and how these are the questions that we're getting. So we've put together some thoughts, some ideas on what might help you guys, which that tells me then there are witnesses to the construction of this letter.
Right. So you can find out if it's fake or not, unless you just believe that they are covering something over there.
Well, okay, so
that would be the
so it would be foolish for Bibi Netanyahu to release a letter that is not accurate. It would be foolish for him to release something that he wrote himself or that he had AI draft when it can be checked by the organization Turning Point USA. Unless for Candace's followers, she already creates doubt in the minds of her followers about Turning Point USA, which she did. Let me play the clip. And you can see why all of this becomes very important, that you've got to alienate people from any source of information that might contradict what you're saying. I wanted to answer a question that came from our teenager. And that question was Charlie Kirk cursed? Like, did the spell of the witches work? That's what I wanted to do this podcast episode on, because I felt like it would be a great opportunity to have a doctrinal, theological conversation about dark forces and the power of those forces and where those forces are limited. So, in just having that conversation with our 17-year-old, I thought, you know what? That might be a great topic. But then today we learned that Bibi released that letter. And I thought, well, how can I do that, and not talk about the fact that Bibi released the letter? So we are going to shift here a little bit on the Culture Proof podcast. And because that's the information that's been out, right? That Israel is responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk. And part of the proof is in the fact that, there's this letter that Bibi referenced, that there was going to be more information in it and that he should just release the letter. So he did. We're going to talk about it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be smiling so big. We're going to talk about it. This is Culture Proof.
Every single stronghold, we pull them down. Yeah.
Thanks for checking out Culture Proof. I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
And today we are talking about the letter that came from the desk of Charlie Kirk that was sent to the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu. And it was the letter that our friend Candace was demanding. And I thought it was so important because, again, the release of this letter calls into question and creates great doubt in the minds of people who want to hang on her every word and believe everything that she's saying. And again, my concern is for the body of Christ.
But does it?
Does it call into question?
I mean, does it put doubt into the mind of people that want to hang on? Because
you can't win them all.
It seems like she has a pretty loyal following as far as these things go. But I'm glad that this letter has been released. And I can only think, about what she's going to say about this letter. It's not the real letter, or been doctored or something like that. There's going to be something.
It'll be in the category of all I said was that. I mean, I don't know why evangelicals got so upset.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I want to be honest. I want to be upfront and honest. The reason I care about this is, again, because in the building of this following, this woman is encouraging people to follow her on this crusade of for truth. And that includes spiritual truth. That includes conspiratorial truth. It just includes all the stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm concerned about those who may be weak among us who are like, she's right, she's right, she's right. And so she must be right about these other things that are of deep spiritual significance. And she isn't.
Right.
She isn't.
Right.
She isn't. And so that's why I care about this. I got to tell you, it's not on my radar to chase after correcting Candace Owens.
Right. That was the reason we even went this way.
It's because of the spiritual implications of where she stands and the influence that is increasing. Okay. Because she is kind of gathering people into her fold. And upsetting. I think upsetting those who are faithful in the body of Christ. If somebody is going to write to her and ask if it's okay for him to go to a Bible believing church, yeah, I want in on that. I
Right.
want to say to her, nope, I got this one. Let me answer this question.
Right.
You stick with Brigitte
Yeah.
M-
Which
Macron.
she's not sticking with that anymore. That's kind of gone.
Well, because there's bigger fish.
I mean,
There's bigger fish
but
to
that was
fry.
that's one of my points. That I was so big
Yeah.
that it was like, man. So, but I understand this is her friend. She want to get to the
Well,
bottom
we're
of
going to
what.
actually, okay. So about that, man, look, I'm sorry. Her credibility is really gone for me.
Yeah.
And so even the generosity that I wanted to, okay, yeah, we want to defend and we care about our friends. Increasingly, it's looking to me like there was a great distance put between Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens on purpose. And not only by Charlie Kirk, but also by Turning Point. And so I feel like we have to talk about that. And I did grab some receipts to kind of make our case for that, because I don't think you just want to speculate, pull things out of the air. So anyway, before we get into content, though, I want to say a huge thank you to the premier sponsors of the Culture Proof podcast. That is bjupresshomeschool.com. We homeschool our kids, but not because we're afraid of bees. We homeschool our kids.
Oh.
You'll know what that means later. Hold on. Stay with me. Stay with me. We homeschool our kids because of the Bible, because we want to make
Yes.
sure that they know the word of God so they can stand against lies in the culture, not chase conspiracies. Okay, I'm sorry. I need to focus. That's the homeschooling curriculum that we trust, because we do not want something competing against the truth of God.
Amen.
And so if that's important to you and how your kids are educated, then check out our friends at bjupresshomeschool.com/culture-proof. When you follow that link, it'll be your way of letting them know that the Addisons sent you. Okay, well, the great.
Yes. Yes.
Let's go ahead and get into the farm of clips that we have.
Okay.
To kind of make our case here. And then also, we do have the letter from the desk of Charlie Kirk. The New York Post had this out today. I can tell you that Candace will say that the New York Post is the information arm of Israel. In fact, I think I've heard her say something to that effect before. So I don't expect her to find this credible. And I don't care, because here's the letter. And there's so much about the letter. Here's a letter. And there's so much, 7 pages, by the way, so much about the letter that I feel like is trackable and confirmable, that like, I feel like for it to be something that is doctored or something that is a lie, it would mean that all of Turning Point USA is in on it.
Well, she probably would say.
Actually,
that.
she will. She did say that. And I'm going to play that clip as well. And let me just say, people who traffic in conspiracy theories, and I've already said this, but I just want to run a highlighter over it. People who traffic in conspiracy theories to upset people, they alienate your other sources, right? So in order for Candace Owens to be the champion for Charlie Kirk, she's got to love him more than anyone except Erica Kirk. Now, she's unwilling to try to go beyond that line, but she's got to love him more than anyone else, including the organization that he founded. So in order for that to be so, she's got to sow little seeds of like doubt in the minds of those who listen to her, that anything that comes from Turning Point USA, you won't believe it, or you'll demand things of Turning Point USA that you won't demand of Candace Owens, because Candace is your friend. Okay, Candace is your friend. She's got your back. She's got the info. She's got the 411, and you can trust her. And in her words, you can trust her, bro. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. But I think the stronghold that she has on people's trust, I think at best has to be loosened. I don't think it'll be broken, because people will always have a lust for information, but I think it's got to be loosened. And I think people have got to start asking her some questions about the information that she's disseminating. So let's just jump into it with these clips, because, we heard from Candace Owens, and she was convinced that Charlie Kirk was being bullied by Israel. Now, and again, in Charlie's own words, we have the footage of him talking to Megyn Kelly and talking about how just any pushback publicly. He's being called an anti-Semite. Like
Right.
we do have him in his own words saying that, but that's publicly available to anyone. That's not an insider scoop. That's not something that Candace needed to go digging for to make sense of. But she was convinced and told her audience that, Charlie Kirk was facing pressure from Israel. And also he was fighting for agency over himself. He was fighting to like own himself again. And she knew that. She knew that for a fact, just like she knew he was converting to Catholicism.
But she had to walk that back.
So again, what else? Like, okay, so let's just get into some of the clips here to set this up, because I think we need the stage set when we start to talk about this letter that came from Bibi, that was released by Bibi Netanyahu, but originated from the desk of Charlie Kirk. All right, so before we do that, here's a little bit of setup. Here's what Candace was talking about, and here's some of the demands that she was making. And I think these are the demands that portended the release of this letter. Here we go.
Contextualize Bibi. Again, these are things Bibi brought up publicly, which he didn't have to. He didn't have to bring up the letter. He didn't have to bring up the phone call, but he chose to do this less than 24 hours after Charlie Kirk was shot. Personally, Bibi, I would have appreciated if you guys used all of your spyware, you'd spying on us for years, to maybe track down the killer. But I guess this is where you thought it was best to do a little propaganda for Israel would be better than us helping us track down the killer. I will again put it out there, Seth, Bill Ackman, and to the other individuals who I have not yet named, but who are going to be named later this week, who were at the Hamptons when Charlie was put under pressure, when Bibi Netanyahu called him and invited him to Israel, again, in a move that when it happened to me, and it wasn't by Bibi Netanyahu, felt to me like a laced threat. I am inviting you guys, I will give you my platform, actually, to come clear matters up, to tell us what really happened, because, I think Charlie was definitely on the brink of changing some of his perspectives. And I can tell you factually, Charlie was praying the rosary. Charlie was going to mass.
I just kept that in there for old time's sake. That is actually not on topic, but I just felt like, it was just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's petty. But in context, she's saying that Charlie was changing some of his positions.
Mm-hmm.
So what it makes you think is that Charlie Kirk was no longer supporting Israel,
Mm-hmm.
that Charlie Kirk was moving away from his very public support of Israel's right to defend herself. Okay, so you listen to that, and that's your takeaway, which again, Candace is very good at speaking convincingly, very good at speaking with like a certain amount of like authority.
Right.
She knows this, and she knows it. She knows it. She says it like she knows it, right?
Yeah.
And so everybody believes that you can't challenge that. Well, she continues, and this is where she kind of starts to talk about this letter that came from Bibi Netanyahu that, just 2 days after Charlie Kirk's murder, why is he defending Israel? Why is he talking about this letter? And you're going to hear she's going to make a demand for the letter to be released. Here we go.
In fact, I know that towards the end, Charlie was fighting for custody of himself. I want to say that. I want to say that plainly. And there are lies that are being told, and they need to be slapped down right now.
That's what we're doing.
There's one person who's been out there acting like he is a widow, just saying the absolute most, tweeting first about what happened to Charlie, following it minute to minute, and doing hits in a foreign country, right? Like making time to do hits on Fox News, 2 of them. Bibi Netanyahu who's fighting, I think, like an 84 front war with everyone, made a lot of time for Charlie Kirk. You would have thought they were the best of friends, as close as him and Trump were. But I will say I don't recall Erica mentioning Bibi Netanyahu in her speech.
Okay, just for a second, we'll go right back to that clip. This is not going to be long. I just want to say, though, that if that's the measure for like depth of friendship,
Mm-hmm.
Candace Owens also has not been mentioned.
I haven't heard. No.
Okay.
No.
And we're going to show you in a clip that even when there was a direct opportunity given
Mm-hmm.
to someone who would have been really close to Charlie Kirk to talk about Charlie's relationship with Candace, he doesn't do it. So I just want to say that, because if that's the measure, if that's what we're using, that Erica Kirk hasn't mentioned him, he wasn't mentioned, then what
Yeah.
what does that mean is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Back to Candace.
The way he's presenting it is like he was I mean, this is just the worst loss for him, but I don't think that is the truth. In fact, I know for a fact that he is misrepresenting some things that happened there towards the end. So let's at first listen to what Bibi Netanyahu, just one day, less than 24 hours after Charlie died, what Bibi Netanyahu had to say on Fox News. Take a listen.
We're just heartbroken. Myself, my wife, my family, my son, actually, on his 2019 visit to Israel, had lunch with him and his wife, Erica. We're shattered first as human beings because a great human being has been taken from us. Was an extraordinary friend. He said, he wrote me a letter on May 2nd this year. He said, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances to defend Judeo-Christian civilization. A few weeks before the tragedy yesterday, I called him and I spoke to him and I said, please come to Israel. I invited him to Israel. And sadly, that visit will not take place. But he was a defender of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. He was unbelievably excited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus here. He valued our bond, the bond between America and Israel. He did so many things to defend free speech. He had his truth. He stood up for it. But he said, you can come and debate me. He invited that debate. He certainly didn't invite the violence, the horrible violence that tried to silence him. And this is a worldwide problem. The people on the extremes, the Islamists, the radical Islamists, and their union with the ultra progressives, they often speak about human rights. They speak about free speech, but they use violence to try to take down their enemies. Whether it's President Trump, who's been almost assassinated twice, or they try to kill me here too. But they got Charlie Kirk, and it's just heartbreaking.
Who is they, Bibi?
He just said, he said the radicals who want to shut down free speech. Now, but here's the thing. What you count on is like the short attention span of the person watching the clip, because he just actually qualified who the they, quote unquote, is in the scenario that he's setting up when he says they tried to get President Trump, they tried to get me, and sadly they got Charlie Kirk. Now, when she says who's the they, it's creating like this sort of like seed, that is planted in your mind that, oh, he knows. Because we're talking about one shooter, but he's talking about the ideology. He's talking about what drives people to see disagreement as violence. That's what he's talking about. And again, no reason here that I should defend Bibi Netanyahu. But what I'm saying is, I just don't like people using words to play with other people. You know what I mean? I don't like people like counting on, us not thinking and processing as we listen to someone actually speak. So that it's like, wait, he did say they, but he actually already qualified it. He actually already set it up and talking about, he said radical Islamists. He talked about those who would shut down free speech, those who would shut down the debates. Charlie Kirk was willing to debate, and those are the people, that's the category that he created. And then he said, and they tried to get President Trump, they tried to get me, and they got Charlie. That's the they.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm stopping it there to say that is because your girl Candace wants you to think that was a confession. I'm not trying to force fall, but I did pull out my flannels because I do feel like a little breeze in the air.
Oh yeah,
it's time. I see you've got the crew neck on.
Yeah,
it's time. You know what? It's also time. It's about to be hoodie season. You know what it's also time for? It's time for sniffles. Oh. It's time for decreased vitamin D. It's time for people to be shaking your hand and you don't know where it's been. Let me just tell you, you need your supplements, okay? You need to get your body built up and get ready to face the fall and the winter where the dreaded reduction of vitamin D takes place. You're not out in the sun like you used to be. You need to make sure that your body is ready for what is coming. Check out our friends at We Heart Nutrition. We've got third-party tested supplements that work. Y'all, we are so geeked up about We Heart Nutrition. This is what we take to stay on top of balancing our body. You can do the very same thing. You will not be disappointed. You need to check them out. That's weheartnutrition.com. weheartnutrition.com. Use the promo code CultureProof and save 20% today. That's promo code CultureProof at weheartnutrition.com. And as always, 10% of everything that goes into this company where these people love and fear the Lord, 10% of what goes in comes right back out to help crisis pregnancy care centers all across this country. They celebrated 2 years, and in 2 years, they've given over $400,000 to crisis pregnancy care centers all across the country. You can be a part of it, doing the most for your body and also little bodies that you may never meet. Check them out today. That's weheartnutrition.com.
He knows something and he's yeah. And like you said, if your attention span is pretty small, it'll be like, wait, who are they?
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I would say this, I think I've seen enough video out there of Charlie Kirk himself speaking about where he was, as far as with Israel and what was going on. And I never felt from those clips like, okay, I'm pulling my support. I'm never gonna
No.
It seemed like it was always, hey, I don't like this. This is something that's coming up. But man, it was like, I love Israel. Like, this is a place where, I've been. And so I think we have enough to go on because I feel like she's trying to like dredge up some things that, you didn't know that he was this, but we have video. We have there's video out there of him saying those things where he was like, man, this is, I don't know about this. And in this letter, he lays out some of the problems he's facing, he was facing because of what was going on and how badly it seemed like they were doing their PR or their media stuff.
Yes.
And he was trying to help them address that.
Yes.
And so, to say like, he was changing, he was having these different views and making it seem like he was about to turn his back and like, man, that's why they killed him.
That, yes. Okay. That's it. That's it. You need that narrative to say that Israel did it. Okay. You need Israel in the conservatory with the candlestick. All right. That's what, and you need a reason for that. And so what you've got to do is you've got to create doubt in the minds of people who are listening that they would not be able to rely on hearing Charlie Kirk in his own words. It's going to be the commentary on what Charlie Kirk was actually saying, the deeper meaning behind what Charlie Kirk was actually saying, which I think is it's so disrespectful to try to, posthumously speak for a person,
right?
When the person spoke enough, in life, to accurately depict who he is or who he was.
Yeah.
So we'll go back. Here's Candace again, because again, she's gonna, break this down. It's the Jews. Here we go.
Who is they who got Charlie Kirk? We don't have to actually speak conspiracies. I'm just wondering, because you said a lot there, but it really sounded like it was about Bibi trying to establish a narrative that we saw reinforced by a lot of people. That, Charlie kind of made it almost sound like he died for Israel. I mean, Trump's account even tweeted out a photo of Charlie and an American flag and also an Israeli flag, a bit of AI used, like this is just who Charlie was. He says Judeo-Christian values. He spoke to him 2 weeks ago. Again, you would think he was busy fighting this 97,000 front war, but no, he's letting you know that he just randomly picks up the phone and calls Charlie Kirk and invites him to Israel? Why would Bibi do that?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
Bibi did that because Charlie Kirk asked him to. In the letter that he released, he goes through his grievances. He goes through the issues that he has with Israel's failure to actually paint a better picture of what's happening over there. He talks about how you're losing the younger audience. And I want to go through some of this because when she asked the question, like, why would Bibi Netanyahu just randomly pick up the phone and call Charlie Kirk? And I don't want to jump to the end of the letter, but I feel like I have to, because when you get to the end of the letter, and forgive me for going out of order here, you get to the end of the letter, this is what Charlie Kirk says. Quote, "The Holy Land is so important to my life, and it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Feel free to contact me on my private number below if you would like to discuss this further. Sincerely, Charlie Kirk. And then his number was under his name, and obviously they redacted that. Okay, so you can't see that. But again, if you don't have access to that, and people just, as she likes to say, I'm just asking questions that you never come full circle with. I saw somebody had anyway, somebody had a really funny post out, and I don't know who shared this with me. I think somebody shared it with us on Instagram, but it said that basically Candace can find Israel down every road, even a cul-de-sac. There's Israel.
Oh my goodness.
And that's the thing to me that gets so old.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not even that she is really looking for information and saying, well, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. But then kind of like bringing it full circle, coming back. It's like she just asks a lot of questions to lead to distrust, but then just leaves those questions out there. like she just did when she says, and I'm not trying to make this a conspiracy, but I'm just saying, who's the they? Well, you did just make it a conspiracy, though.
Right.
It's like a person saying, I'm not saying it's an ugly dress, but you just said that it's an ugly dress.
Right.
Like, I mean, that's high school. Do you understand? And so anyway, I'll let her finish up, and then we'll hear from Bibi Netanyahu, and then we'll look at some of this letter that Charlie Kirk and his team, you would imagine, wrote, because he in the letter actually mentions his team. And there's a reason I'm saying that. Because if Candace would say, well, how do we know that this is the actual letter? It was put out by the New York Post, the shill for Israel. Then you would have to know the contents of the letter, all 7 pages, read it, and recognize that repeatedly Charlie refers to his team and how these are the questions that we're getting. So we've put together some thoughts, some ideas on what might help you guys, which that tells me then there are witnesses to the construction of this letter.
Right. So you can find out if it's fake or not, unless you just believe that they are covering something over there.
Well, okay. So
that would be the
so it would be foolish for Bibi Netanyahu to release a letter that is not accurate. It would be foolish for him to release something that he wrote himself or that he had AI draft when it can be checked by the organization Turning Point USA. Unless for Candace's followers, she already creates doubt in the minds of her followers about Turning Point USA, which she did. Let me play the clip. And you can see why all of this becomes very important, that you've got to alienate people from any source of information that might contradict what you're saying. Here's Candace last week planting these seeds of doubt in the minds of people about Turning Point USA. All right, here we go.
Do not like, and it is bothering me and is eating at me, is the fact that Turning Point will not release the footage, okay? I don't understand it. Every excuse that I have been handed for why they won't release it makes no sense to me. If you are under pressure, if people are starting to look at you funny as an organization, if they're thinking that, whether rightfully or wrongfully, if they are suspecting because they see this footage of someone quickly remove the SD cards, that you guys had something to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and you quite literally have footage that in theory should vindicate yourself, why wouldn't you release it? Think about that. It's just in your own capacity. If somebody is saying you are guilty of anything, if they're like, Candace, you are absolutely guilty of breaking into my car, and I'm like, I have a camera right here that shows that I did not break into your car. Would it make sense if I was like, but I'm not going to release that? I'm not going to release that. Because it's not right. It's not right for me to release. What? It makes no sense.
Yes. In your world. Because as the gatekeeper of information, if you call it forth, it should be presented. If you make the demand, it's like the first one to make the accusation must be the innocent one, right? And so that's what she's doing. It's like a series of these like small but significant accusations where she makes herself the source of what is truth.
Yeah.
Like she's the source of it.
And I feel like if she had the relationship that she says that she had with Charlie Kirk or with the organization, because in another clip she mentioned, I'm one of the Masons of of Turning Point. It seems like they would have been eager to collab with her on, some information. Like, man, she's one of the Masons. Like, she's one of the pillars here, like one of the ones that helped build this organization. So she gonna, but it seems like you don't get that. It's like you can see that there's a distance. Now, she may say it's because they're guilty. They're hiding stuff. They're doing things. And even the SD card thing, they gave an explanation.
Yeah, but it's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be good enough because Candace was able to bully her way into somebody's life and watch the footage repeatedly, she said, which is kind of, what do you mean repeatedly? That's what she said. But she was able to bully her way into somebody's life and determine that information should be released. So anything that comes from Turning Point is not going to be sufficient because, again, Turning Point now, in the minds of the Candace's audience, they are the enemy. They are the enemy. She has created a group of people who look to her to absolve people or to accuse people. Hey, the Culture Proof Conference registration is open. Culture Proof 2026 is happening at the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. 3 days of impactful conferencing and delightful family vacationing all rolled into one.
Yes, cultureproof.net. All information you can find there. Make sure you use the code so you can get the early bird special. Man, it's going to be a great time. And for me, it's going to be my family reunion. I love it. I look forward to the family reunion every summer. And so go to cultureproof.net to get the details about CP 2026.
Yeah, when he shows up with those leather closed-toe sandals.
Uncle Will.
Then you know Uncle Will. Uncle Will is on the scene. Don't miss out. Cultureproof.net, cultureproof.net. Click on the tab that says Culture Proof Conference 2026. You'll see who the speakers are. You'll see who's been invited. This year's theme is Living Epistle, so you know what this is going to be all about. We hope to see you there.
And I've seen even some posts, it wasn't like the other ones, but I've seen them where even Erica, they're like, oh, I don't know. She's moving on too quickly. Like, I don't know. I'm reading her body language and she seems like she's willing to take care of business without even grieving yet. Like, so I'm seeing that come out more and more too. So it's like this whole
So, okay, to your point, let me play the rest of this clip because that's a really interesting point that you just made. What I found is that Candace kind of sees herself as like, I can clear Erica. Like she is the one who holds the truth, so she can, like, with her words, absolve a person or incriminate that person. Like, that's the kind of, and she recognizes that, like, she has that power with her audience. And I don't see why she wouldn't think that she had that power with her audience when you've got people clamoring to hear you unfurl the next conspiracy, right? So let me continue with this clip here because she's going to go into talking about what some people are saying about Erica Kirk, but notice that she's going to put herself in the place of, like, King Candy or Queen Candy, who gets to say, no, I absolve her. We can trust her. And why? Because I said, okay, here we go.
I don't understand why they would not release this. The idea that it's because, well, the feds are saying the feds cannot arrest you. Last I checked, the feds cannot bring charges against you for releasing footage that you own. And since when do we trust the feds? Certainly Charlie didn't. He didn't believe we were getting the truth about the Epstein files and things of that nature. So I don't accept that. That said, I also want to be clear that it doesn't mean that every single person that is continuing on in the organization is guilty of murder. I mean, I think we want answers, but we shouldn't be like, this person's definitely a murderer because they're not providing the answers. I've been speaking and I've been seeing a lot of vitriol that's been thrown at Andrew Colvette's way because he is doing press. He is carrying on Charlie Kirk's show. He was already seated on Charlie Kirk's show. He was already there. And I was being genuine when I said he's under a lot of pressure. There's no question. He's the spokesperson for Turning Point USA, and he's grieving somebody that he knows and who was a very close, if not one of his best friends. He saw every day doing the Charlie Kirk show, and he's still got to deal with the same donors that Charlie was dealing with. I mean, it's a lot going on, and until we have all the facts in front of us, until we actually see the footage, I think we should be careful in just thinking that everybody is guilty of something.
Oh man, I thought that was a different clip. There's an actual piece where she mentions Erica Kirk, and she's talking about, and I thought we had that clip. She's talking about how Erica Kirk, there's some, why was she writing this letter? Why was she fundraising? And she kind of goes into, I've been in this world, people will use your name and likeness and all of this stuff. But then she says, I don't have any reason to doubt Erica Kirk. I don't have any reason, and if something comes up, I'll tell you.
Well, it's almost like even with this guy, Andrew, like she's calling off the dogs.
Yes.
She's like, okay, y'all can come back now. Like he's fine. He was already doing the show before. Like, don't back off, y'all. I know it's like, she got her followers kind of like Beyonce and Taylor Swift.
Oh, goodness.
It's like, all right, guys. No, he's cool. Like he's having to deal with donors and all this kind of stuff as well. It's like she has the power to like bring them back.
Yeah.
Bring these followers back. Don't get on them too hard,
It's so aggravating to me that in order to kind of like insulate her narrative around Charlie Kirk, she has consistently pretended to be closer to him than she was nearing the end of his life. I'm not calling into question at all her time with him when she was a part of Turning Point USA. I'm not calling into question that. But I think there's such a gaping hole in like the present. You know what I mean? Like where you would say you were invited to the memorial, or people are calling on you to make remarks. Like, can you say something? Can you help us memorialize? Help us collectively eulogize? And none of that is happening. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like she just wants us to pretend like that's not, we don't see it.
Right.
We don't see it. Recently, Tyler Boyer, who his credit or his credentials, I guess, would be that he's the longest tenured employee of Turning Point USA. So he was on Alex Clark's Culture Apothecary podcast. And she asked him a question about Charlie's friendship with Candace. Now, before we just feed our commentary into it, I want to play it because, again, this is about her feeling like she sits in the seat of authority to be able to demand a letter be released. And the letter has been released, and we're going to look at some of the contents of it. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to this woman because you're in search of truth, that search has got to be tempered with all of the misfires of information.
Right.
It's got to be tempered with the seeds of doubt that are glaring, that you can't ignore. And I don't care how many millions of people, line up to hear your thoughts, which we're going to show some of them most recently are concerning. That doesn't make you right. So again, here we go. Tyler Boyer on the Culture Apothecary podcast asked a question, you'll hear it, and then just listen very carefully to his response.
Candace put out her original video that she put out when Charlie first had died was just about like the early days, her friendship with Charlie and all their adventures and everything. What is this story that you have about Charlie and Candace that Candace didn't share?
Oh, well, there's a lot. I put one out. That was right away. I was there with them. It was like, the three amigos. I was with Charlie and Candace when we went to TMZ that day with Candace and Kanye. And Kanye was immediately obsessed with Candace. I woke up super early to Candace's phone call. I was like, oh my gosh, got this tweet from Kanye. And so call Charlie. And by the next week, we found ourselves, we were in, Calabasas where Kanye had all his production and everything. And he was living with Kim at the time. And they were married and everything else. Basically, we took Candace there and they had their first meeting that was there. And Candace had mentioned that she loved Chick-fil-A. And in the conversation, there was the conversation about she liked it with, I think it was honey mustard or whatever it was. I don't know. I can't remember. And we had also talked about liking chicken minis. And so he had shown up the next morning with he had driven through Chick-fil-A's drive-thru by himself.
Oh my gosh.
And had bought 1,000 chicken minis, but had put mustard on them. Like it was
Just
like
for Candace?
yeah, just for Candace. But like he had totally like fumbled that. But like there was all like these inedible like chicken minis that had like honey mustard or mustard or whatever. It was all over them. I was like, wow, that's like true love from the very beginning.
And was Kim there when you guys had this meeting?
They met at Kanye's house at some point with that, which was kind of like, again, this was, before everything, like everyone had come out. And I just remember how excited Charlie was because, Kanye had brought all these Yeezys and everything else. And so had given Charlie some very particular Yeezys. And so Charlie had worn those around for like a long time after that. I mean, this is just one of many, Charlie being there stories, but he was there the whole time, to support and love on, the direction things were going with Candace.
Okay. So my study, my undergraduate studies were in public relations, communications.
Right.
Okay. So I pay attention to non-answer answers. And that beautiful story was one of the best non-answer answers that I've heard in a long time. How many ways can you not associate Charlie Kirk with Candace Owens currently, but still seem like you're
right
doing it?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
about Candace and Kanye. That whole stuff, like, so Charlie enjoyed the shoes and stuff, but
He was there when they went to Calabasas. Okay,
Yeah.
but Kanye went to get the Chick-fil-A chicken minis.
yes,
I just want people to understand that. This was
that
about
not Charlie. That was
that's not
Kanye.
Charlie.
Yes,
Okay, that's Kanye West going himself through the drive-through Chick-fil-A to get this food that Candace loved. Remember, if we're dating this time period, it's when they go on TMZ, where Kanye is talking about how much he loves Candace, and Candace has some really smart things to say. This is Kanye this is his conservative era.
oh my goodness.
Okay, and so the story that Tyler Boyer is sharing is the story of Charlie Kirk supporting Candace as a lot of attention is coming to her, which she loved. Okay, because like she wanted to be famous. She wanted to be famous. And she got that.
Yeah.
But this is not a story about, oh man, Charlie and Candace were aces. That's not what he says. He talks about Charlie being present to support the direction that things were going for Candace. He didn't, and I may be chopping this up too much, but he didn't even say there to support Candace. He said to support the direction that things were going for Candace. That is a very careful response. And again, why am I bringing this up? Because all of the drive behind the emotional roller coaster that Candace is taking people on is sort of contingent on this deep and abiding friendship that she had with Charlie Kirk right up until the moment that he lost his life. And I think if you listen carefully to the way she expresses, you find that all of the points of reference go back to like 2018. You find that she can't say that she really knew Erica Kirk because, of course, when I was spending a lot of time with Charlie, both of us, were single. Neither one of us was married. Okay, well, I have friends from when I was single who then got to know my husband if we were still friends. Now, if we were no longer friends, they didn't.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we're checking all of the boxes here,
There's so many.
Charlie's converting to Catholicism. Wait, who said that?
She had to walk that
Okay.
back.
We need the whole letter. Let's get to the letter. Or Charlie and I are friends.
Yeah.
And then here's Tyler Boyer. Tyler Boyer talking about Yeezys given to Charlie Kirk because Kanye West liked Candace. Thought Candace had some great ideas. Okay. We need the letter released. Benjamin Netanyahu released the letter. The New York Post published it. I think that's important to say because I can see Candace objecting to the platform, the news outlet. Okay. Here's Bibi Netanyahu talking about Israel being accused of having something to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Here we go.
Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, said that the bigger the lie, the faster it will spread. Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder. This is insane. It is false. It is outrageous. Charlie Kirk was a giant, a once-in-a-century talent who defended freedom, defended America, defended our common Judeo-Christian civilization. Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He told me so in a letter that he sent me just a few months ago. One of my greatest joys as a Christian, he said, is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. He encouraged me to make the case directly to the American people about how vital Israel is to U.S. national security. He told me, the Holy Land is so important to my life, it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it. This is the essence of Charlie. This is the essence of a free country. It's exactly what Charlie stood for. And I knew that his suggestions always came from the heart, from his love for Israel and from his love for the Jewish people. A few weeks before his death, I spoke to Charlie. I invited him to visit Israel again. And sadly, that won't happen. Now some are peddling these disgusting rumors, perhaps out of obsession, perhaps with Qatari funding. What I do know is this: Charlie Kirk was a great man, and a great man deserves honor, not lies. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. May your memory be a blessing.
Okay, so here's the letter. And I'm going to read a little bit of the letter because I think it's so important. You know, I would have more respect for Candace if she were able to maybe ask questions that didn't have to have like a full conclusion, even in in the asking of that question or of those questions. For example, if she said, man, you know, Charlie really had an affinity for Israel, but he was pushing back in healthy ways. That's the kind of talk that you hear coming from like Megyn Kelly, maybe a little bit Tucker Carlson. I don't know. But that's the lane that they're in. It's like, no, I support Israel, and let me not say they. I think Megyn Kelly more so. I support Israel, but we've got some problems here in the way people view this war and what's happening. And I think if Candace could have, you know, humbled herself to take that position rather than make him, you know, he was, I will, you know, Israel is Satan. That was Candace's position. And so she needs Charlie Kirk to also have had that position. I might, and I don't know, you know, I might respect her a little bit more if she attempted to be accurate with what was publicly available to everyone. Anybody could look up his comments. Anybody could see his exchanges. And it's very much consistent with what he wrote in this letter. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it. From the desk of Charlie Kirk. One of my greatest joys, well, it says, Dear Mr. Prime Minister, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews in the fight to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. Most recently, I am proud to have taken over Ambassador Huckabee's show on TBN, where we continually support Israel and the Jewish people. As Mohammedanism spreads into Western societies, it's critical that Jews and Christians stay united in the effort to contain and roll back radical Islam and Sharia law. I regret to report that anti-Israel and anti-Semitic trends are at record levels on social media. These negative sentiments that flow downstream into college campuses and even seep into the conservative MAGA community. Now, I'm sorry, these sentiments then flow downstream is what he said, not that flow downstream. Let me stop here for a second. Because I read the entire letter, his bringing in this is sort of like setting up the premise for the letter, that there is a problem happening now. And it really is, and he will refer to it as like a PR nightmare, a public relations nightmare. And it has to be addressed. It can't just be ignored. Yeah. And so Charlie Kirk and his team, they are taking it upon themselves to address this with the Prime Minister. I'll continue. My team and I have spent months analyzing these trends and debating ideas that could help you and your country push back against these disturbing developments. Anti-Israel sentiment can undermine American support for Israel. The purpose of this letter is to lay out our concerns and outline potential remedies. Everything written here is from a place of deep love for Israel and the Jewish people. I think it's important to be brutally honest with those you love. In my opinion, Israel is losing the information war and needs a communications intervention. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire letter. You can find it online. But I think the sentiment is so important to be pointed out.
Yeah, definitely. And it's plain to see here that he still had a great affinity and love for Israel, and he wanted to help where he could help. That's why he was mobilizing his team to give some suggestions and to say, and you can read it for yourself. There are points like this, this, and he even offered that we could help.
Yes,
so the tenor of the letter was not like, well, I'm tired of this and you guys, and man, that's it for me. I'm not doing. But he did make the point that it's harder and harder to speak. He said, as I go onto these college campuses, the questions about Israel are ramping up, and the questions he wrote them. Some of the things that we are getting.
Let me read those.
From the students, and I'm having to answer these questions like night after night. So he's trying to help them to get in front of this, so that Israel will look, better than how they've been looking on campus, especially to the young people.
Exactly. Now think about that, Will the Great. Okay, so if he's feeling pressure to defend Israel and he's doing the best that he can, and think about if this is the letter that reached Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu,
right?
What interest would it serve Israel to take out the person who is saying, I want to champion the cause of defending Israel's right to defend herself?
Right.
Because that's what he says in the letter.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. But if you only have half truths, if you only have bits of information, and then that information is being twisted, it really makes you doubt. To the point that you made, let me read this portion of the letter. He says, my experience on college campuses matches a recent Harvard-Harris poll, which reported 48% of 18 to 24-year-old Americans support Hamas over Israel. Even in young MAGA circles, Israel is losing support. We're getting huge crowds of 4,000 to 5,000 students on some of my college tours. My campus visits are becoming like a rock concert atmosphere filled with conservative patriots. Yet, on these campus visits, I'm constantly confronted with, and then he lists some of the challenges that he's confronted with. Quote, Israel is an apartheid state. Why does Israel conduct ethnic cleansing? Why is America subsidizing Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people? Is American aid helping to subsidize Israel's free health care? Israel and the Jews are running U.S. foreign policy. Israel and the Jews are responsible for 9/11. Defending Israel is not in our U.S. national interest. Why is Israel trying to drag us into a war in the Middle East? And then he says this, above are just a sampling of the negative Israel Jewish comments and questions I confront on college campuses. I'm accused of being a paid apologist for Israel when I defend her. However, if I don't defend Israel strongly enough, I'm accused of being anti-Semitic. I know you've got a 7-front war. And he said, basically, my concerns pale in comparison. Like there's bigger fish that you need to fry, okay? But he says, I'm trying to convey to you that Israel is losing support even in conservative circles. This should be a 5-alarm fire. Now, again, you can look at this, you can dismiss it, you can say, well, I don't know if I trust that. And truly, I think that those who listen to Candace will find ways to reject it unless Candace says it's okay. Unless Candace says you can accept this.
Yeah, I doubt that highly.
There's something else that I thought was really interesting. And Dennis Prager had bad injury, back fall, and he is paralyzed. He's, can't move, but he released some video footage where he was addressing Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly and the idea that they are anti-Semitic because they're pushing back on the government of Israel. Now, here's Dennis Prager. And again, I think if Candace Owens wanted to be genuine, then she would include all of this information, because it's like Candace is trying to create an us against the Jews. Like, she's not allowing for nuance. She's not allowing that people can have concerns about what the government is doing, but still love the Jewish people, still love Israel, believe that Israel has a right to exist. It's like, for her, she's creating this all or nothing. And I think for Christians, we need to be really concerned about that. We need to be reading God's word. We need to be prayerful and discerning. But man, we can't be getting like our marching orders from someone who attends a mass in Latin and is not reading the Bible. Like,
right. And she's proven that even in those matters, that she has not been a studied, person. Like, she, like in religion, I'm even
Right.
as a Protestant, it seemed like she didn't really know what she believed, because when it came up to debate, I have to get my friend Allie Beth Stuckey
like,
to debate my
Man.
husband, because why couldn't you just get on there and have a show with him if you were, so. And now with the Catholicism, I feel like it's the same thing. You get somebody like E. Michael Jones on, and he's making these claims, and you're not pushing back. It's like she don't really know what she believes, but then she want everybody to follow her as like she's this great sage and teacher. Man, we have to be discerning.
You're so right. You're so right. It's just, man, I don't know. I feel like I if people are going to listen and get their info, man, you need to be close to Jesus.
Amen.
Because one of the things, and I said this before in a previous podcast, one of the things that I noticed was that the more I listened, and sad to say, with even a little bit of lack of discrimination, like just kind of like listening, like, oh, that's really interesting. I felt the sensuality of that. Like, it just like shifting your views and making you think, whoa, wait, well, hold up a second. Like, maybe we ought to consider this, and maybe we ought to follow every tunnel and every rabbit hole and all of these things that, and I do want to share a scripture, and in context, this does not apply to Candace at all, but I do see the wisdom of God in the warning against those who, even in the church, would have like an unhealthy love for controversies. Like, there's a warning. Now, again, and this is to those who would be false teachers in the church, but there is wisdom that we can draw from the warning that's in scripture.
Right.
But before I do that, and maybe we could wrap up with that, but before we do that, I would like to play this clip from Dennis Prager talking about Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly and what they have the right to believe. And I think it's so balanced, it's so measured, that you would think that Candace Owens would want to play this for her audience, because like it would bring the temperature down a little bit. But somehow I just don't think that she's interested in bringing the temperature down. Here we go.
Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk have been anti-Semitic. You're out of your mind. Charitably, you're paranoid. And Jews have a right to some degree of paranoia, given what's happened to us. But I don't excuse it. These have been two of the most outspoken pro-Israel voices. They are allowed to differ with the Israeli government. Half of Israel disagrees with the Israeli government. I have watched both of them in their outspoken defenses of Israel, which unfortunately takes some courage today on the right. There are a lot of voices that are anti-Israel. There were voices on the right that were anti-Semitic in William Buckley's time, and he, to his great courageous credit, publicly rebuked them. It took a lot of courage. Courage is the rarest of the good human traits, as I always point out. There are a lot of good people, but there are very few courageous good people. I would only say to Megyn and Charlie, in fact, I had every desire to call Charlie to talk to him about this. You can't say the Jews anything. George Soros is a Jew, and Benjamin Netanyahu is a Jew. Do they have anything in common? Absolutely nothing. One is on the right and one is on the left, and therefore they have nothing in common. Hitler and the Nazis would say Jews were the inventors of communism, and Stalin would say that the Jews were the inventors of capitalism. So you can't both be right. You can't say any group, the Americans, the whites, the blacks. It doesn't work.
I just want to jump in. I think that makes the point,
Yeah.
right? Like, this is constructive.
Right.
Like, these are the kinds of conversations that we want in the public square, where we can say, okay, I don't like that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to apply that to an entire group of people, an entire nation of people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from her own mouth, Candace has called the Israel demonic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's wow. So I'm starting to notice a pattern here. When I disagree or no longer like or favor a particular group or entity, they're demonic. Like the Protestants.
Right.
Is rooted in Satanism. I mean, that's a problem. That's a problem. And I would, before we run out of too much time,
Mhm.
Because you reminded me of this, things are getting a little weird. You know what I mean? Things are getting a little weird. And I say this carefully because I can imagine that there's a lot of pressure that you start to build this kind of platform and people are watching you and
Yeah.
you've built a certain audience
Yeah.
with a steady diet of a certain type of content, and you've got to keep doing that.
Yeah.
But things are getting weird. And I think, at some point, man, things are getting weird.
Yeah. They are.
Should we just play the clip?
Yeah. Play the clip.
This here's Candace talking about why she's homeschooling her kids and bees. Okay, here we go.
Or was coming, and that I needed to take time to take a look at just the process of hiring people at the school that my children were going to attend. And I did just a cursory online search, and some messages I found, which were not written by a teacher at the school, but someone who was adjacent to some teachers at the school, gave me pause for concern. In fact, explicitly what it was a Polish underground symbol, like a Polish communist underground symbol that nobody would have recognized outside of people who know what it meant. And I just sort of went, okay, that's weird. I kept looking online, and strangely, I'm not kidding, and I'm going to show you these messages, I came across what looked to me like a bunch of people talking about bees. You're going, Case, what do you, like literally bees. In a way that the only way I can describe it to you is like they were speaking about bees, but they weren't speaking about bees. It was very coded. And I'm going, am I going crazy? Or do you think that all these people are really actually, quote unquote, bee farmers, or saying that they farm bees? What is this lingo that I'm not understanding? Why do I feel like it's related to students? I didn't feel good about it at all. And I just sensed that we needed to get more involved, to go to the school, to ask about the process of hiring, to see if they needed more security. They were kind of giving up me the thing that teachers do now when you ask any questions about what happens at the school, which is they make you think like, why do you want to know? Like, we just do whatever we want to do. It's like, I don't know. My children are like 5 and 4, actually. Parents should, of course, we need to be more involved. Like, how did we get here that we feel like we're crazy for asking questions about the hiring practices at schools? And the feeling just didn't go away. I can show you this actually, because I was thinking, like, I said to my husband, there is some weird underground, it's like I sense like imminent danger is coming. And for some reason, I feel like there is an underground that has emerged at schools, and it's like related to bees. That's what I said. And I messaged multiple people about this, my sister. Here are a couple of more text messages to other people. You can look at the time frame here. This is 8:30, August 30th. This is September 1st when we went off air. September 2nd, we were off air. And I started talking about people that were discussing bees in a way that didn't make sense. I'm like, I don't know if this is drugs. I don't know what it is, but it's weird. And so in a sentence, I just said, there's imminent danger coming. Okay. It is relating to a school. I think it's a communist underground, and I don't know why, but it has something to do with bees.
And then she goes on to talk about the Utah state flag.
Mm-hmm.
And being like the honeycomb, or like the bees and worker bees and beehive and and let me just be charitable here. Maybe she is spot on. Okay, maybe she is 100% right. But I would caution members of the body of Christ to be very careful about people who, among other things, and I would say chiefly, plant seeds of doubt
Mhm.
in your mind about what you believe biblically
Yeah. Yeah.
when they do things like this.
Yeah. Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're chasing, if you're bee chasing, and that's it's like I just had this feeling, I just had this, and
Mhm.
you're bringing in all of these different things, you know, I just feel like for believers, okay, it's got to now kind of go into the category of like, this might be my nightly entertainment. You know what I mean?
Not
Like,
take it too
not
seriously.
this
Yeah.
cannot shape
Yeah.
your worldview. It cannot begin to give you a different type of like thinking and sensing.
Right.
And no, this is, it's bad. It's bad. And there's a passage of scripture I happened to, I had been reading through, 1 Timothy. And as I was reading this particular passage, now in context, and context is important, this is about false teachers. This is about those who would contradict sound doctrine. So I'm not calling Candace that, because in the context of false teachers, we're talking about those in the church who would kind of weasel their way in to challenge doctrine. But the Bible reveals something about people who have this like desire for controversies. The Bible reveals something about their heart. And so again, in the context of false teachers, but I couldn't help but think like, man, you know, there's something to this. Even as I think about what Candace is doing, like she just has like
Yeah.
this unhealthy appetite for conspiracies, throwing people off, making
Mhm.
people believe, you know.
Yeah, I would say it is false. Some of the claims that she made about, the Protestant church and
Yes. Yes. Oh, well,
and
yeah, you're right.
Catholicism. So there's some false teaching that she has allowed on her platform and made herself.
Man,
So,
you're absolutely right. And
so
I think that is a threat to the body of Christ. I think
yeah,
it's a
I think that's a
threat to the truth.
big reason why we as believers need to be like, okay, hold on. Do I need to listen to her?
Yeah.
Do I need to watch her?
Yeah. Yeah. Or like again, it needs to go in the category of like,
Entertainment.
yeah.
If that's what you like.
Tetris. You know what I mean? Like those kind of things where you're like, I don't have anything else to do. I may as well go ahead and play a little round of Candy Crush. I don't know what people are doing these days. But this is 1 Timothy chapter 6. I'm going to start at verse 3. It says, if anyone advocates a different doctrine and does not agree with sound words, those of our Lord Jesus Christ, and with the doctrine conforming to godliness, he's conceited and understands nothing.
Mm.
But he has a morbid interest in controversial questions and disputes about words, out of which arise envy, strife, abusive language, evil suspicions, and constant friction between men of depraved mind and deprived of the truth, who suppose that godliness is a means of gain. So basically, it's like that becomes sort of like their grift.
Mm-hmm.
The religious aspect of it becomes their grift. And when I read this, I think, wow, when a person gets into this category, like I think the Bible calls for us to kind of mark them. If and again, I'm not making Candace a pastor. I'm not giving her that much, heft. But I am saying if there are enough questions that surround the information, at what point do we start to say, okay, all right, okay, this is entertainment?
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Because we've shown there's been multiple times where it's kind of like, say what? She had to walk some things back, made these statements like they were fact, and then had to come back and say, oh, no, I didn't mean, and then say things and then come back and say, well, I don't know why they're so mad. It's like, hold on, So I think
obviously he didn't become Catholic.
Right. Those things. So I mean, we can't just dismiss that stuff and say, oh, she. Yeah,
it's like insult to injury, because not only do you say that as if we misread it, but then you turn it on us as if it's an opportunity for us to hate Catholics.
Right. Why everybody?
Man, I don't know. I'm gonna have to get over that one.
And that's why we even started talking about it. It was the religious part. It was that.
Yeah.
That's why we had Dr. Jones on.
Yes.
To clear up his statement that he made on her podcast.
Yes.
So, we got into this because of contending for the faith.
Yeah. And increasingly, I see that place is an area that needs some serious contention. Like it needs some serious fighting.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, that's it. When we resist the cultural trends that rival the truth, we remain culture proof. Until next time, Lord willing.
God bless.
Hey, if you like this video and value the content, then go ahead and like the video. You can subscribe to our channel if you want to do that as well. Feel free to comment. We try to read all of your comments and we try to respond to most of them. Of course, if there are too many, then it's hard for us to get to them. But we value interacting with you. So thank you so much for being a part of the Culture Proof community.
Also, click that notification bell. That bell will let you know when a new episode drops.